Reveal season. About 3 times a year, Hearthstone circles will become abuzz after the announcement that a new expansion is coming to the game. To bring this bubbling cauldron of hype to a fever pitch, Blizzard will sometimes release one card from the new expansion early to give players a tangible look at the new direction of Hearthstone. Today, I want to look back at these promotional cards and say if they were hits, misses, or just sort of meh. From March of the Lich King, the Sunwell. Too soon to tell. The most recent promo card is Hearthstone's first ever neutral spell and a big lore card, the Sunwell. The Sunwell is a 9-mana legendary neutral spell with the effect to fill your hand with random spells. Costs 1 less for each other card in your hand. It's a little too soon to judge this card as it just came out, but it certainly got the wackiness factor of most promotional cards. This card gives every class access to a holy spell, which might come up in spell school based decks, and it gives every class a big value card. Currently, it sees some play in Thief Rogue, one of the strongest decks right now, but it has not been the meta warper that the previous promotional card was.
I see you've brought guests.
Well, love me or hate me, you gotta love me.
And that card was from Murder at Castle Nathria, and it was Prince Renithal. Hit. Super hit. Prince Renithal is a 3-mana 3/4 legendary neutral minion with the effect your deck size and starting health are 40 instead of 30. A card that probably had the biggest effect on deck building since Reno Jackson, the card completely changes the way we think about Hearthstone. When this card was first released, anyone could tell you that this card would be good in slow control decks and bad in fast aggro decks. But the big question was whether or not it would do well in more mid-rangey decks. Well, it seems like it has. Getting what used to be a quest reward as a start of game effect turns out to be pretty good. The power level of aggressive decks are usually set to deal about 30 damage by turn 7 or so, and end the game just before the slower deck is able to stabilize. With 40 health, however, aggro decks have a much taller task ahead of them, and classes without access to typical defensive tools like armor or healing, like in Rogue and Hunter, can benefit greatly and try out slower strategies. Renithal could probably get a video all on its own, but for now, let's just call this a grand slam.
I'm 7 moves ahead of you. Mind if I roll?
For Voyage to the Sunken City, we have Blademaster Okani. Hit. Blademaster Okani is a 4-mana 2/6 minion with Battlecry. Secretly choose to counter the next minion or spell your opponent plays while this is alive. Counter minion before counter minion, this card receives some less than stellar reviews upon release. I just tested the card. It's garbage in the form of a card. This collection is rubbish. The head game designer is out. Hearthstone is over. And who wrote that? You guessed it, Frank Stallone. However, as time went on, it solidified itself as a solid include in a lot of decks. Some notable decks include Fell Demon Hunter, Hero Power Mage, and Curse Warlock, among many others. This card provides a new type of interaction not usually seen in Hearthstone and certainly not seen in classes outside of Mage. Another hit.
The Stormpike clan bows to no one!
In a fun little promotion prior to Fractured and Alterac Valley, players could log in and choose to align themselves with the Horde or the Alliance. Those who picked the Alliance received Vandar Stormpike, a cute card for enabling big decks, and Drekthar, a neutral call to arms. Let's start with Vandar. Vandar Stormpike is a 4-mana 4/4 with Battlecry. If this costs less than every minion in your deck, reduce their cost by 3. This card certainly appealed to players who didn't like United in Stormwind's, slightly more fast-paced gameplay.
I'll take a face full of pavement just to make a statement. I know there's no turning back. Oh God, adrenaline.
This card is designed to go into a much slower style of deck that controls the board with spells in the early game and then proceeds to drop high-value minions at low costs. The biggest issue facing Vandar is that if you want to be playing a slower deck, you kinda need to be playing that Prince Renithal card, and these two don't really play nice together. Miss. Miss. I don't know.
Our enemies will meet their
Drekthar. Hit. Drekthar is a 4-mana 4/4 with Battlecry. If this costs more than every minion in your deck, summon one of those minions. Well, that's what it says now, but on release, this card summoned 2 minions from your deck. A card that was very good in cheap aggro decks, the card got finally pushed to the point of being nerfed by Aggro Demon Hunter in Sunken City. That mulligan win rate ended up being a little too high. The card was almost impossible to nerf without totally changing its effect, as increasing the cost of the card would probably make it better by allowing it to cheat out larger minions and allow the deck to include cards it was excluding before. Making it cheaper would mean the incredibly powerful effect would be coming down even sooner and deciding more games. Ultimately, it was changed to just summon 1 minion from the deck, which was not worth the cost of excluding all 4+ cost minions. But this card certainly was a hit.
What adventure are you up to today? Have fun in the dead mines.
For the release of United in Stormwind, we had Flightmaster Dungar. Miss. In one of the only ways you can get whiplash while sitting comfortably in an office chair, sipping a Diet Coke and playing a digital card game, one of Hearthstone's fastest metas, United in Stormwind immediately followed one of its slowest, Forged in the Barrens, and this card certainly liked that slow format a lot better. Flightmaster Dungar is a 3-mana 3/3 with Battlecry, choose a flight path and go dormant, awaken with a bonus when you complete it. Wow, even comes with an exclamation point. These flight paths are as follows. Westfall. In 1 turn, summon a 2/2 adventurer with a random bonus effect. The weakest choice, but the one you pick if you are desperate to get any offensive pressure going. You pay some quality to have the flexibility of this card. But this effect is a lot worse than the dormant cards that didn't really see play in Outland. Ironforge. In 3 turns, restore 10 health to your hero. An effect that requires a lot of timing to get right, but you can insulate yourself against aggressive decks if you do, and get that 10 health of extra healing to get that extra turn you need to stabilize. But now, you just play Prince Renithal. Eastern Plaguelands. In 5 turns, deal 12 damage randomly split amongst enemy minions. The most devious option, you can use this to pressure your opponent's health total or clear a board your opponent will build in the future. The issue with this effect is twofold. 1. Your opponent can see which effect you picked and play around it, and 2. It is very difficult to predict what is going to happen in the next turn in Hearthstone, let alone 5 turns from now. Or really 9 turns if you count your opponent. This one is probably a miss.
You making a big mistake, man.
Shadowhunter Voljin. Meh. Released before Forged in the Barrens, Shadowhunter Voljin is a 5-mana 3/6 minion with Battlecry. Choose a minion, swap it with a random one in its owner's hand. I am glad that they chose to make this card work on both your and your opponent's minions because it makes it much more interesting. I already talked about this card in my Good Cards and Bad Archetypes video, but I do want to mention something I forgot to talk about there. In Wild, this card could be comboed with Mechathoon, where the combo would go as such. As Warlock, you draw into the combo pieces of Hemet Jungle Hunter, a cheap minion, Cataclysm, Mechathoon, and Voljin using Warlock's Great Draw and Kobold Librarian and Backfire. You play Hemet to empty your deck that is now all 3 or less cost cards. You then play the cheap minion and Voljin to swap it with your Mechathoon in hand. You then play Cataclysm to discard your hand and destroy the board, triggering Mechathoon's death rattle and winning you the game in one of Hearthstone's few alternate win conditions.
So easy.
The Darkmoon sails! Adventure and excitement await!
Time for my favorite. Silas Darkmoon is a 7-mana 4/4 minion with Battlecry. Choose a direction to rotate all minions. These promotional cards appear to be a playground for pretty nifty effects, and Silas is no exception, essentially giving every class access to a cheaper mind control and a more expensive treachery. This card was a blast and made people really think about where they position their cards on the board so as to not get it taken by Silas. The card could be splashed into a few decks such as Libram Paladin or Control Warlock, but to me, it was most interesting in conjunction with Control Warrior in the ETC OTK / Rattlegore / Silas Darkmoon OTK deck. A Control Warrior deck with about 4 win conditions, the deck could do as follows. Win on tempo with Bloodsworn Mercenaries effect. In the late game, copy a Rattlegore with Bloodsworn Mercenary and win on that crazy amount of value. ETC combo your opponent by copying ETC with, you guessed it, Bloodsworn Mercenary, summoning a bunch of minions, and then giving them all rush with Animated Broomstick. And finally, over the course of the game, accumulate 30 armor, and then give your opponent a soulbound Ash Tongue using Silas, and then shield slam what is now your opponent's Ash Tongue to deal 30 direct damage. Hit, but that's a little biased.
Home is where the wagon is.
For Scholomance Academy, we have our first non-legendary, Transfer Student. Meh. 2 copies of this epic were distributed before Scholomance Academy and is one of the most complicated cards in the game. It is a 2-mana 2/2 that has different effects depending on which game board you are on. Look, I understand that some of you want 40+ minute videos, but this card is... just look at its page on the Hearthstone website. This card currently has 31 different effects. Well, let's take a look at a couple. Darkmoon Fair Transfer Student. They even gave it a new Corrupt artwork. Rosticon's Rumble Transfer Student. This card is somehow better than most Overkill cards. Knights of the Frozen Throne Transfer Student. Arfis is punching the air right now. Blackrock Mountain Transfer Student. At the end of your turn, reduce the cost of a random card in your hand by 2. Nuts. Grand Tournament Transfer Student. Somehow better than most Inspire cards.
Energy, power. My people are addicted to it.
Before Ashes of Outland, we had Kael'thas Sunstrider. Hit. Kael'thas Sunstrider is a 6-mana 4/7 minion with the effect that every 3rd spell you cast costs 0. Surely making spells cost 0 won't cause anything bad to happen. Well, this is what the card said when it came out. It actually has a rich history of balance changes. At first it was nerfed to 7 mana, then it was nerfed so that every 3rd spell cost 1, then it rotated out and got brought back to its original cost and effect, and then that was a mistake and they brought it back to the 3rd spell costing 1 again. Luckily, they learned their lesson and never made a card like this again.
I will split your soul apart.
For Descent of Dragons, Sathrovar. Miss. Sathrovar is a 9-mana 5/5 demon with Battle Cry. Choose a friendly minion. Add a copy of it to your hand, deck, and battlefield. It's a little slow, but in comparison to an old turtle wading through syrup, it's actually pretty fast. If your opponent leaves up your good big minion for a turn, this can get you a ton of value. However, usually when you say, if your opponent leaves up your good minion, you want the follow-up to be, this wins you the game. For Rise of Shadows, Archmage Vargoth. Hit. Archmage Vargoth is a 4-mana 2/6 minion with the effect, at the end of your turn, cast a spell you've cast this turn. Targets are random. If you're a fan of Res Priest, how are you doing? You okay? People say a lot of mean things about you, and I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Okay, well anyway, if you're a fan of Res Priest, this card is pretty solid as it allows you to cast another Mass Resurrection if you resurrect this. In addition, this card can combo pretty well with Oaken Summons as you can recruit this minion and then recruit another one from your deck. It has a decent amount of health and a low enough cost so that it is not completely out of the question that it could stick around for a turn. Plus it leads to a lot of funny combos. Also, it dominated this poll I just posted, so I don't know what's up with that. SN1P minus SN4P from the Boomsday Project. Hit. Snipnap is a 3-mana 2/3 mech with Magnetic, Echo, and Death Rattle summon 2 1/1 microbots. There's a lot going on here, and this card actually caused one of Hearthstone's keywords to be changed. With Mech Warper and Summoning Portal, Snipnap could be played an unlimited number of times, and with it having the Magnetic keyword, it could be constantly attached to a mech, increasing that mech's attack infinitely and killing your opponent. Outside of that combo, the card was a pretty decent mid-range tool that could provide a number of mech bodies for magnetic plays, and it could also be used flexibly to fill out mana curves as it could be a turn 3, turn 6, or turn 9 play.
One for all and all for me.
For Kobolds and Catacombs, Marin the Fox. Miss. The first promo legendary, Marin the Fox, was released prior to Kobolds and Catacombs. Marin the Fox is an 8-mana 5/5 minion with Battle Cry. Summon a 0/8 treasure chest for your opponent. Break it for awesome loot. The chest is a 3-mana 0/8 With Death Rattle, that gives your opponent, which would now be you since you gave it to your opponent, a fantastic treasure. The treasure would be one of 4 cards. Toland's Goblet is a card that's only good situationally and probably fills your hand with an okay card. Golden Kobold, a card that probably ruins your hand, but I guess it's a decently statted taunt minion.
Skull of Gul'dan on super steroids.
And Zarog's Crown, which probably gives you a little bit of board presence and gets worse every time a new legendary gets released. But hey, double rag? This card is slow, way understated, gives your opponent a minion they can buff, and is just a silly little guy. As these promo legendaries were first starting, I don't think the intention was to make them the meta staples they are today, but it is certainly a fun card. Alright, well, that just about wraps— oh, what's this? I guess I can include this one. 1 golden Volcanosaur. The week before Journey to Ungoro came out, they gave players 1 free golden Volcanosaur. Volcanosaur is a 7-mana 5/5 beast, battlecry, adapt, then adapt again. I mean, I don't want to criticize any free thing, but I mean, it's Volcanosaur. Best case, it's like a 5/5 Divine Shield Windfury or something. Or maybe a 6/6 that can't be targeted. Miss. I don't know. I want to say thanks. These videos have been getting a lot of support recently. A lot more than I was expecting. Also, thanks for everyone who has left one of those really nice comments. I check my phone, the YouTube Studio app, throughout the day. And those always put a smile on my face when I read them, so thanks. Okay, let me try this YouTube thing. Call to action. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'm on TikTok. You can follow me on TikTok at Chundo TikTok. I'm also on Twitter. You can find me there if it still exists by the time this video goes up at Mr. at Mr. Chundo. I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.